Hey, hello. Welcome everybody. I'm going to be talking with Adelaide from Talkbox Mom tonight, and we're going to be talking about food, language, foreign culture learning, or food, culture, and foreign language learning. So I'm really excited to have you all here with me. Adelaide will be joining in just a minute. Hi, Saba. Nice to see you virtually via Instagram Live. So I'm really excited. Adelaide and I did kind of a version of this in the Facebook group, and I shared a little sneak peek on that, and you can find that in the Talkbox app. But I'm excited to be able to share a lot of the information that we shared here. If you saw in the stories, Adelaide was sharing that they had gone out for some Indian food, and we're using some of the techniques that we had talked about in our Facebook Live. So, Adelaide, and hopefully we can figure this out, because I've actually never done a live on Instagram. Yay, it worked.
Hey Jade, how you doing?
Good. How are
And
you?
say hey Saba, who joined us too. I'm doing all right. I just ate a lot of a lot of spicy Indian food. It was really good.
I mean, I had some Indian food too tonight, but it was not spicy. So,
Yeah, my kids do not like spicy food.
yeah, neither do. Well, mine are coming around to it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Well, it's like they instead of saying they don't like it though, they say I can't eat spicy food as quickly or as well. Or, yeah.
Well, I mean, you have boys, and so but like my boys like to like inhale food. And so, yes, like it's like, well, when you ate the entire samosa in one bite, like, yes, that's a lot of spice in one bite. Oh, but yeah. Well, hello, Nina. Hello, Lizzie. Thanks, guys, for joining in. Um, so, Adelaide, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I've been talking about TalkBox a lot in my stories lately, so hopefully some people are familiar, but for those who aren't.
Yeah, I've seen your fun stories. So if you don't know who I am, that's okay. I am a mom of three boys, and I'm also the owner of Talkbox Mom, where we help families to start talking in a foreign language the same exact day you start with our boxes that have full phrases. They come to your house already done with charts and everything you can say. There we go. In full sentences, all made by native speakers. And we have an app with all the audio so that you can hear how it's said. And I don't do the audio. I'm not the Mandarin speaker. It's real women who are from those countries or still live there, all native speakers that work on our project. So it's just really fun. And the goal is to help your family to be able to use the language and not just like study a language. You know what I mean, Jade?
Yes, there's a big difference between like the Spanish that I studied in school and the Spanish that I actually end up using at home. Um,
Yeah. Our goal is like if your child is in a job interview when they're older and they're like, "Do you speak Spanish?" They're not like, "Well, like I took it for like 2 years in high school," but instead they're like, "Sí, hablo español, quiero trabajar aquí," trabajar aquí. And I don't know, like whatever they want to say to them. And then
yeah,
they're like, "Yeah, sí, puedo hablar con las personas." Like whatever it is, they're able to like show that they speak Spanish and use it. And then when they're on the job, they can actually talk to people,
yeah,
and if they
because
misspoke like I did, who cares? Like, just fix it.
yeah. Well, and I think especially people are pretty gracious when it's your second language. Like, if
Oh,
you make
yeah.
little mistakes, I know that like whenever I try to speak Dutch, I know that I inevitably always make a mistake because people kind of look at me like, oh, okay, I know what you're trying to say, and we'll let that go. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, word order is really difficult.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think it's fun, and it's also fun for my kids because, like, when we go to say like on vacation to Mexico, my kids can play with other kids there, and it just makes it fun, and we can become friends with other families. So I'm not just speaking, but my kids are also speaking too. And if you don't know, we speak our strongest language in our home is German, and then we also speak Spanish with our kids. And we recently started doing Korean because Jade and I are both from Little Korea.
It's true. Little Korea, little Armenia.
Yeah.
Like, really, we should have grown up, like, basically speaking Korean with how many Korean friends we had.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I think about
know,
that
like,
now, and I'm like, I missed that opportunity to just learn it on the fly as a child. I only learned how to,
yes.
like, say really unkind things to people and missed opportunity there.
I would like greet my friends' parents when I saw them, like their mom when she picked them up, because they would bow to their mom and say,
Hmm.
"안녕하세요, oma." And so I was like, "Oh, I guess that's what we're doing." "안녕하세요, oma." And like they would all giggle because I was being like, "Hello, mother."
But I'm sure they thought it was so sweet that you were actually trying.
Yeah, yeah. If I knew what I knew now about like how to really start using languages, I would totally go back, like you said, and be speaking so much Korean and in Armenian, but can't go back. And so now with my kids, we are speaking a lot of Korean and getting further and further with that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's fun.
Yeah, and we live in the Netherlands, so Dutch has to be the primary language that we are learning, especially because we have a 4-year-old who does not know any Dutch now. My kids speak it fluently and impress people all the time, which is awesome. But obviously, the rest of us are still learning. But when we have the opportunity, we're really diving into Spanish more because I feel like I missed out on so much opportunities living in Los Angeles and in that, in the areas around about and being like, I could have gotten to know so many more families, especially at schools that we went to and gotten involved in some of the groups that were there if I had just worked on my Spanish. My dad is a Spanish speaker. It's part of my heritage. And I'm like, God, I've missed out. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw that one of your stories and I was like, "Oh, Jade really needs to do Spanish too because it is part of your heritage." I know people often kind of struggle sometimes like what language should I start with or do, but you've made some really great points because I always say like that when you're looking to choose a language, the first thing to look at is like if you could speak it, what would change your life right now? And that for
Yeah.
you obviously is Dutch, and that's going to change if somebody say is in Los Angeles right now and they have Spanish speakers around them. And then the second question is like what language would change your future opportunities? And I don't know, like for you, Jade, if you spill the tea, how long are you going to be in the Netherlands, or are you like undecided?
Um, we
Or
may
don't
or
spill it. Don't spill
we
the
may or
secret.
may not be moving, but I don't know yet. So we're here for now.
Okay.
And so that's kind of just the plan.
Okay.
I take it
So,
day by day.
yeah. So, like, let's say, is my internet connection bad or is it still working?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So like let's say like Jade was going to return to I don't know, she's going to move to Texas because it's the best state. I might be in Dallas right now and be very biased. But there's a lot of Spanish speakers here. So she's like, "Okay,
Yep.
we'd like to do that." And that would help maybe you or your husband with like work and stuff and
Yep.
connecting. Then the last question is if there's just a language that's near and dear to your heart that you've always wanted to learn, that's a really important choice too, because you're only going to do the language you want to do,
Yeah.
right? Like if you feel like you have to learn Spanish because you live somewhere, but you've always wanted to learn Mandarin, you're going to
Learn
learn
the
Mandarin a
Mandarin.
lot
Yeah.
faster. Yeah.
Because
And
you're
there's
going to be a lot more
opportunities.
motivated. And that's my husband. He's much more motivated. He speaks German, but for some reason, like Mandarin is really hitting the
It's his
spot for him
motivator.
right now. And so he is diving
Oh,
full deep. And we watch a lot of like Chinese dramas. And he's been like so excited. He's like, I knew what they were saying for that like one line.
I
But
watched
it's,
the one, the Triad Daughter one, Princess
oh, we have
Triad
not.
Daughter. Have you
Yes,
seen that one?
there
It was
was a,
It
there
ended
was a,
too soon. I was like, I need more. It was 6 episodes. I was like, where's my 21 episodes of this? What's going on? Or 16 episodes, I mean. Oh my gosh. Okay. So is going to like China an option or he just loves Mandarin?
he just kind of has fallen in love with it. I mean, we have a goal to live on every continent. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know, but we're open to it.
Okay.
So,
So you
um,
thought you were going to interview me and I'm just prying into your life. Guys,
that's
if you
okay.
have more prying questions for Jade, put them here. I'll ask them. I'm on it.
There you go. This is the time to ask all the odd questions that you want to know about Jade.
Yeah.
What we're doing.
Well, really fun. So, so
Oh,
yeah,
and
but yeah.
sorry, I wanted to say, like, I know that there are a lot of people who are like me who have like Hispanic heritage, Latin heritage, but didn't get a chance to learn that language. And like for me, that's what Talkbox is like kind of re-engaging with a language that I should have had an opportunity to learn, but that for some reason I didn't, and that's okay. Like, so I want my children to learn it so they can be proud of their heritage and be able to make those connections and like reconnect with the heritage that we've lost. And I know a lot of people are like that. So whether that's Chinese, Korean, Japanese, even German, I mean, it's a great chance to reconnect.
Yeah, and the reason, like, I think it, like, when you say it's a great chance is because you're going to start talking in that language the same day you start, right? You'll be using that language for
Yeah.
real. It's not like learning about it. But it also, like, kind of goes to the reason that we named it Talkbox.mom. The dot mom stands for your mother tongue, which is learned
Hmm.
often from your mother or from your parents. And so it's like a big nod at what we as parents do, and how language is passed on. And so it does feel like, okay, maybe I didn't have this opportunity or I didn't take advantage of it when I was younger, but I still have the opportunity to like be part of a mom passing on her mother tongue.
Yeah.
Because these are women who have made our program, and you hear it how they say it, and it's phrases that you say in your home.
Yes. And I really appreciate the fact that you have native speakers who have done it, because as I delved into more like learn how to learn a language, like it's been so good to know that like needing to hear the sounds and hear it from native speakers, like it's so helpful.
My favorite like current example of like why native speakers is my kids watched Iron Man in German, and
Hmm.
at the end Tony Stark said I am, and in German ich bin, but he says Iron Man, like, you know, the name, because it's a name. But my husband was like, why isn't it Iron Man in German? And I was like, he's like, what's iron? And I'm like, Eisen. But how do I know that so quick, right? So I was like, that's weird. So I'm like, ask like a device, how do you say iron? And she's like, Bügeleisen, which is like would be, and I told, once she said it, I was like, babe, I need Bügeleisenmann. That's a man with iron, like to iron my clothes, coming to my house. And I was like, I need a Bügeleisenmann in my life. Like that's what I'm lacking. And so when you get like a word here or there and it's not in context, you get crazy things. Or if
Yeah.
you like try to build a language from English to another language, it doesn't produce that language because they're different languages. So I
Yeah.
appreciate native speakers. I think it helps so much. I don't,
Yeah.
I like
There's
that.
so many like nuances to how you say something. Like, I mean, this is why Google Translate doesn't always translate things correctly. You get weird phrases sometimes because even though it is like perhaps like word choice correct, it's not how
Yeah.
the meaning was. And so yeah, I always crack up Google translating school emails because I'm like, I think I know what's being said here.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
So
My,
the one I'm thinking of is that they were talking about sunscreening, and they're like, we will repeat the greasing, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like
repeat the
you're
greasing.
gonna, yes, you're gonna
Reapply.
put reapply sunscreen, but I was like, repeat the greasing is my new favorite way to talk about sunscreening.
Yeah. So that's why it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to hear the full phrases from moms. My son, he has like a current example also like that he's been like saying. It's like potty talk, right? It's a boy. But
Oh,
if it's okay, I'll share the potty talk example. Okay, this is because language, it doesn't make sense. One thing that's not potty talk is like really interesting that a lot of the native speakers, when they saw the phrase, like, not a lot of them, but just some of them, was like, put the toy away. Our Hebrew, we work on like teams of 3 to 5 or maybe
hmm.
even more, so they check each other. But the first lady going in for put your toy away, she's doing Hebrew. She's like, put your toy away, put your plate away. What are you guys just throwing it somewhere? Where is away? And I was like, away means in its place. And she's like, that's the complete opposite of away. You realize that. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so my son, he asked me, he's like, Mom, are you taking a dump or leaving a dump? Like, it doesn't make sense. He's like, where would you be taking it to? You are leaving it, but you say, I am taking a dump. So that's his potty talk example of like why language doesn't make sense.
Boys, no, gotta
Boy,
love my boys. Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
So it's,
that's always like the first thing they learn. It's like, how do you say poop? How do I
yeah.
insult you with it?
Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
poop phrases are all in our book because
Yep.
we have them. You can skip any phrase though. So if you don't like
Yes.
it, you don't need to email
You
me. Just
pick the
skip
ones
it.
you're going to use, but my son, so he was watching Boss Baby, and I don't know if anybody else's kids watch that. It's actually surprisingly clever.
Boss baby
But
or baby boss?
Boss Baby, it's a show on Netflix.
is it the baby boss like character, like the Alec
Yes,
Baldwin one?
I think so.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. I hope
Okay.
so.
Anyways, and so I guess at some point one of the characters knew how to say like who farted
Mm.
in 7 different languages. And I was like, well, and they would thought that was hilarious. Like, oh, I want to do that. And I was like, here, let's go pull up the Talkbox app. And so we listened to it in all 4 languages that I have because we may have a problem because we keep buying them.
It's a good
And
problem.
it's a
Good
good problem.
addiction, healthy
And
addiction to buy more languages. Yes.
but it meant that I could pull it up for my son and be like, here, let's learn how to say it in 4 different languages. And I was like, and you already know Dutch and you have English. So there you go. You're at 6. Like, we'll
Yeah.
find one more somewhere.
Bravo. Sierra says, I'm teaching my brother's twins how to say I pooped, which is helpful. You want your kids to say that if they
Yes,
not
you
run
want them
around
to
in
let
it.
you know.
Yeah,
It's an
and
important skill to know.
I see another twin mom in here. All these twins. That was
Yes, so that
fun.
is my friend Anna, who is an
Hey,
American, married to a Dutch, and her
Anna.
boy, or she's got a girl and a boy, and yeah, they're also the same age as mine. So I love hearing the things that she's doing because then I'm like, oh, this is what we should do with my boys.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. So fun.
But yeah, so we have lots of people here. So I think this is a great time to kind of talk about. I was thinking about the first box and how it's all about food. And it's such a good place to start because obviously we eat at least 3 times a day. And if it's during summer, you're probably at like 20 if your home is like mine. But so I guess why did you start? Is that the main reason why you guys started with the food box?
That's such a great question. So each of our boxes have a different fluency approach that builds on the other boxes. So sometimes people are like, I want to do the boxes out of order. And I'm like, oh, you want to start with the first box because the fluency approach is consistency, right? Like how many times, like you said, do they ask for food? It's based on consistency. And there's lots of patterns in our boxes to help you move forward. And so the second box, for example, is like to get you out of your head. So if you're somebody who studied the language previously or you're self-conscious, everything in that box you have to say while you're on your feet, doing something, moving around. It's not like sit and so you can get out of your head, get out of yourself and just like let the words fall out. It's like right now as I'm talking to you, I'm not like pre-planning and conjugating and doing all my grammar checks. That's not fluency. So with Talkbox.mom, we start with fluency, which means that you're able to easily and accurately use the language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first box has all the snacks and foods, phrases and things in your kitchen so that it can easily and accurately come out. You can use it every single day and really have that fluency and that push to be consistent.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about how, like, I mean, I asked my 2-year-old who is starting to talk. I mean, we have to ask him. He comes in constantly signing food, and so I'm asking him, and you think about how often do you say things like, "Oh, are you hungry? Would you like something to eat?" And that's exactly how you use the Talkbox program. You just swap it from English to whichever language you're learning. And so I feel like it's not a chore to implement it. It's just doing it. It's just adding
Hey,
in
I see
perhaps
this
an extra
shaded
step.
lens here.
Yes.
Sorry, this one that says, hey, 2 of my favorite people. Hey, JP.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, you're right. You're just swapping it out. It's not a chore. There are sometimes, have you like heard people say, oh, kids learn a language so much faster than adults? Like you've heard that, right?
Yeah.
So, but then if you take computer languages, there's no way, right? Like you can't hold anything to that. The reason that kids learn languages so much faster is the environment that we put them in. So for example, like you said, with like babies, they're asking so much for the thing they're not doing themselves. So you're talking to them much more. If I had a group of preschoolers in this room, I would be like, okay, guys, sit down. Like I'd be talking a lot. But if I had some high schoolers, they'd just be standing against the wall real quiet.
Yes.
Right?
And you're like desperately trying to engage them. And you speak to them and they say, good. And
yeah.
like, ah.
Fine. And so this program allows you, even with your teenager, to like bring the phrases back in and to start using those phrases so that you can have that consistency and you can give that same environment. A lot of people are very shocked when they find out that I've learned all these languages after being a grown-up, like not as a kid, because they'll like assume I grew up like that. But nope, I was just your common monolingual. in the United
Yeah,
States, right?
darn, man. Yeah, we got to bring this up. But see, this is what we're doing. We're working on bringing it back up so that we are not the darn Americans who only speak one language. That's
Yes,
fine.
that's the goal.
Yeah, well, and I know I see this all the time in the Talkbox group on Facebook, which is amazing. I love that support group. But so many people are concerned about like talking to their babies in more than one language, and that
Oh,
they will make it so that they are stunted in their native language. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. One, anecdotally, I know that's not true because I have been shamed
I'm
by
trying not to
multiple
laugh. I'm like, because I want
by
to be kind.
multiple
Yeah.
3 and 4 year olds who speak at least three languages and like can do so. Like there was one little girl at my daughter's song group where she was talking to one of her mom's friends in Ukrainian, and then somebody new walked in and she walked over to them and started talking in Dutch, and then she turned to me and started speaking in English, and I was like, I am a grown 35-year-old woman who can only speak one language and speaks the second language very poorly, but she obviously has been able to master three languages and she had
Yeah.
no problems. Um,
Well, let's
yeah,
talk about babies and language acquisition then. So, all babies have different personalities. I am a personality that is a quick start. Like, I will just jump in and start doing something. That's just how I am. My
mhm.
son, Darian, my oldest, he is just like that. He was saying two-syllable words at 9 months old, and he was doing sentences at 1 years old. And I was like, oh, it's because like we're doing languages. And then I had my second child who did not speak like at all. It was like till he was 3 or 2, like over 2, 3, right? Like
Yep.
nothing really going on. And it's because of his personality. And he likes to look at things and observe and like get his place before he does things. And
Yep.
how you are is going to affect how you acquire speech. And so some people will be like, oh no, yeah, like it doing two, they might lose something or not do something. But I mean, if you're consistent in both, you're gonna be just fine. You don't really, yeah. There's just That's just not how it is. But they could speak later, and they might have
Yes.
already been someone who was going to speak later, but we don't know that because
Yes.
we only had one
Well,
shot to see it,
Well,
right?
and that was my oldest. She didn't talk until after two. And then, but when she finally
Really?
did start talking, she started speaking in full sentences. Like we didn't
Yes,
do any of these like
explosion.
single words. It was just all of a sudden like full on sentences. Like, I want this. Can I have this? And I was like,
Yeah.
you have literally not spoken a word for 2 years. Yeah. So, I mean, personality wise, there's very big differences. But I also learned that like kids, because they are, so we're born with the ability to hear all sounds in all languages.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
then our brains filter out the ones that we don't need. So if you grow up bilingual, your brain will maintain both of those. Um, but if you grow up trilingual, it will create roadmaps for all three languages. But you know, you might start a little bit later speaking. But I think by 5, it's all evened out and it's just fine. And so it's just like giving our kids the opportunity to retain that information and just process it on their own. But I mean, my kids, it has been amazing to me to watch them because we have had to learn it because they go to just a local Dutch school. I mean, they learned Dutch in 9 months and they speak like native speakers and they can process it and they can translate for me. And it's just so amazing to see them
Love it.
do this,
Yeah.
even when a little bit older. And the 4 year old, I mean, he started going to school and he was slow and he was struggling for the first, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. But then after that, he was coming home and saying new phrases and saying new words. And I mean, he even
Yes.
knew that like the teacher was telling him to put his butt on the fence, which was meaning like she wanted him to like be backside to the fence, but they say put your butt to the
But on
fence.
the fence, yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. And it's like you were saying how the sounds you're not hearing them. These sounds you can start hearing them after a couple weeks or months, but not if you're stressed out.
Yes.
And so often as adults, we're more stressed out, we're more self-conscious, and so we'll hold those accents, which is why it's so important to make it fun. And so I can see for your kids, like they're having fun at class, at class and with people
Yes.
and doing
Playing
that.
with other kids and stuff.
Yeah, but if you don't have the opportunity like Jade to go to the like go somewhere and do it, Talkbox.mom is such an amazing option because
Yeah.
it can bring the language into your home in the same way. Or if you're preparing to go to somewhere, but not the Netherlands yet. We don't have Dutch yet, even though we would love to have it.
It's been a sad day, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But what I loved was that I took the principles
Yes.
and that's how we've been learning. And so like we made a friend here, and I kept messaging her, asking her, how would you say this and how would you say that?
It's
And I made
so
up my own little
helpful.
chart, and it was not pretty. It was just handwritten,
No,
but it was a great. Oh,
it helps.
yeah,
It takes longer and it might not be as cute, but it is helpful. So I love
yeah,
that you did that.
and it was awesome just to get us going, and for me too. And so like now, I mean, we've lived here a little over a year and a half, and like I can follow conversations. Like I may not be able to speak it, but I can understand what's going on. I can understand when somebody is like, I am not walking today. And that's what happened on the bus. Was the bus driver went past the stop, and a man was like, nope, you need to stop because I'm not walking from the next bus stop to my last bus stop. And it was so funny, but I'm like, I followed this conversation and I'm very proud of that. So that's where it starts. And I think it's being willing to take those triumphs for what they are.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's so good.
okay, so I had some thoughts because I know that sometimes like getting kids to learn and jump in to learning a foreign language can be really, really difficult. So what kind of tips do you have for like just getting started?
Oh, for just getting started, there's only three things that you really need to pay attention to and to make it fun for your kids. The first area, I guess three areas. So the first area is choosing your phrases. So when you look at your guide and you're like, okay, you might think, what phrase do we want to learn? Jade, you know this from food. Like your kids don't want to eat every food, right? So it is more like, what are we going to eat, or like what's going to be on the menu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for phrases, it's very similar. You would say, what phrase do you see yourself using today? And then if they're younger, you can give them options. Do you see yourself saying, I'm really hungry, or I'm all done, right? So you get their buy-in. They're like, okay, I could see myself saying, I'm really hungry. Okay. So then you move into the second area, which is practicing your phrase. And so this would look like using the app with the native speaker audio to say it. And so you would say, she's going to say, I'm really hungry. Let's hear how she says that. And then you can have your kid push the button to play, just like have their interaction. They play it, you say it with them, and I always ask after, what did she say? And this is why we don't have English in our program, because otherwise your kids would mute us out and just like say whatever, and you'd be like, why aren't they learning? Because they're muting everything out. So then you say, what did she say? And sometimes my kids are like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, she said, I'm really hungry. Let's hear her say it again. And then they're like, oh, we got to listen this time. My mom's just going to keep going. They know me. It's because I got parenting advice from this German woman, Andy. And she's a very tall German woman. And she was like, her daughter had asked her something. And then I was like, well, and she like opens the door and comes in the room. And she's like, Adelaide, never give in, And I always I hear her. I'm like, oh, okay, never give in. Anyways, so we say the phrase. It's actually really fun. I've seen silly, but we say the phrase. So the phrase in Spanish, tengo mucha hambre. I'm really hungry. And then I would just ask my kids, where do you say this phrase? When do you say it? And my kids are going to be like, oh, the second you say the words bedtime, that's when I say, I'm really hungry. Yes, true or false, everyone?
Oh, 100%.
So then I'd say, okay, you guys, I'm going to say bedtime. And then I want you to walk down the hall to your room crying, tengo mucha hambre. Right? And so they do that and they're crying it. And then we go, what's the next situation when? And they're like, when I wake up. I'm like, okay, get in your bed, wake up, or come to my bed. I'll pretend to sleep and you be creepy and come by my bed and be like, tengo mucha hambre. Because that's like my favorite way to wake up, right? So now you're practicing the phrases in situations that are real to your kids so that they'll use these phrases in real life, which is the third point, is to use the phrases in real life. You want to make sure you and your kids are on the same page using the phrase. Like you're like, our goal is to use the phrases, because if you don't tell them, they don't know. That happens so much to me. I think everything in my head. And then I was like, guys, we got to use these phrases, right? And they're like, that's what you want us to do, right? I'm like, yeah, that's what I want.
Communicate that? My bad.
Yeah, of course. Or I'll be like, I think it was one time I said, why am I the only one always starting Spanish? They're like, you want us to just start speaking in Spanish? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, so just communicating those things or having time for Spanish time. So then the goal is to use it as life happens. Nolan, he was loading the washing machine a couple weeks ago, and he was taking the washing machine, right? I'm like, dishwasher, washing machine. I know English. And he was moving the clothes he's taking from the washing machine to the dryer. And that's like one of his chore cards in German from our chores box. And so he has to say, we do chores the way Nicolene Peck does chores. I don't know if you've heard of Nicolene Peck. She's teaching self-government. She's teaching self-government.com. but like we do her chore system in our boxes. She said we could, but it's just amazing because like I need you to empty the dishwasher, and the way she teaches it, they're like, okay, I need to empty the dishwasher. Then they finish and they come back and they say, I finished emptying the dishwasher. Is there anything else you need me to do? And it's amazing. Like it works in our house. It's super amazing. I like love that. Anyways, so my son, he like finished it, right? And he's like, I finished in German. He's like, I finished loading the dryer, right? I'm like, moving the clothes from the washer to the dryer. You know, is there anything else you need to do? And then he like stops and he goes, used as life happens. Like he was so excited. He used his chore card, which was like his focus card. So if you focus on those three areas, choosing your phrases and like getting buy-in from your kids too, practicing those phrases and doing it in situations that are real. Like we have printables and other things like games and stuff, but situations are the priority. And then the third, really trying to use those phrases. That's going to really help you go to the next level. And like, as you know, Jade, we have all the busy work done in our boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can just jump in and do those 3 steps that make the biggest impact instead of spending the time. Because I did that with German, Jade, the same thing. Like I'd ask a friend, how do you say this, right? And it's a process.
It's a process.
Sometimes you use it and your friend was like, oh, I missaid that or miswrote that. And you're like, what?
Great. I just practiced that.
Yeah. So we do take care of all that busy work so you can jump into the most important parts and really start using the language. And our goal is that you have this immersion experience that is so similar to being somewhere else like Jade is, where you can just like be with that language, be surrounded by it, start using it. Because not everybody can be cool like you, Jade, and go live in the Netherlands for a couple years, whatever.
It's true. But I think there's so many opportunities that I realize now that I missed out on when I lived in the States. Yes, like again, like major cities tend to draw lots of people who have immigrated, and people tend to collect together. And so, like, how many cultural celebrations could we have attended and gotten to go listen, you know, for like Dia de los Muertos in Los Angeles? Like, there are big festivals and stuff. We could have gone downtown and gone to go hear the music and eat the food and hear the language. Like, we could have done that, but we didn't. And like same, I mean, like we talked about, there was a big Korean population, there's Armenian, there's a Chinatown, and those are all over the
true.
place.
I love this. Yeah. We have a strong
and same with
German community in Dallas.
Yes. I mean, people
one.
tend to go together where they're going to have like support systems. And so this is why you have like these kind of like rich cultural opportunities and celebrations and whatnot. And it's same with visiting like international markets. You can find those just about everywhere in any city. And those are great opportunities too to go in. Oh, my light just turned off. Sorry. Therapy light.
That's okay.
Okay.
Well, while you fix your light, I love what you're saying. And sometimes people feel like you said, like, why didn't we go downtown and go to the Dia de los Muertos like activity? I think sometimes that like you feel like yourself that you're not invited, even though you are invited, you know, but feel like it might be too different. And that's what I love about how you do food, right? Because you're like willing to go and try things. I think like a lot of the friends that we've made that speak different languages that we can go and speak our languages with, we met like at a German Christmas market in Dallas, right? At the German school, like just going there and showing up to eat Lebkuchen, that sounds right. It's gingerbread. Yeah. I was like, wait a second. Is that in Dutch? Do they say kuka in Dutch?
Well, it's peppernote is the same as the Dutch.
I know that word too.
Yeah.
Pepper. Yeah. Okay. Or like, there's like a Korean cultural center actually in Dallas, that like you can go, and going to restaurants is so fun because when you try your phrases, that's when you make friends. We've made friends with people and they're like, I have kids your age, like people who work there. And I'm like, cool, like, let's go. Go have fun.
Yeah, let's meet up for play dates, because play dates are a fantastic opportunity to use the phrases, especially like in your play boxes and stuff. I know we use at the park, like, you know, do you want to go down the slide? Do you want to swing on the swings? And I mean, these are great chances to use this. And do you want to do this with me? And yeah, I mean, there's a million opportunities. It's just whether or not you're willing to take the chances when you get them.
Yeah, take the chances. Take it. Learn from Jade and I not taking it.
Yes.
I guess I took some chances, but I think I could have jumped in a lot stronger. at them. And why not? Like, why not go all in?
Yeah, well, and I think this is what we're teaching our children is to be more open, to be more willing to take risks, to put ourselves out there, because we inherently are afraid of like making ourselves look foolish. But learning, this is one of the things I've learned about culture. Culture is learned. It is not inherent. And so like the way we've learned culture ourselves is because our parents and our grandparents have taught us what is appropriate for the culture that we live in, and the cultures that we interact with, which is why sometimes if you grow up in an immigrant family, you do something at home and then you do it at school and everybody's like, no, like that's not why would you do that? And you learn, okay, that's not okay at school. And so your friends teach you culture. So you just have to accept that you're going to look foolish sometimes. And that's okay because everybody's learning. It's not from like, it's just ignorance, and you learn, and then you're not ignorant anymore, and that's okay. And I've done that so many times here.
I feel like if you are religious and you're working on being humble, like learning a language and doing these things is like when you really learn humility. And then oh, that's okay. You're kind of spinning. And then you also learn in that empathy for other people who have immigrated. Like, what they're going through and how it is, which is like really helpful. So I always take opportunities when I meet somebody who maybe they don't know as much English, that I talk to them extra. Like, I just really talk to them, and I make them want to cry because I'm talking to them so much, and I'm making them talk back so much because I know like that's what they need.
Yes.
So, like,
and being
I'm
willing to be patient, say things a little slower. It's not saying it louder. It's just enunciating, talking slower so that their brains have time to process. Because especially when we're trying to navigate in a second language or sometimes a third language, our brains are over processing. So even if people aren't talking perhaps faster, it's our brains are taking longer to process that. And so like that's where when you like listen to somebody and you're like, I have no clue what they just said, it's because your brain's taking so hard to process it. And so when we slow down and we are willing to say things and take the time and repeat if needed, that's so helpful. I know that when people do that with me, I'm like, okay, I got this.
like
I can do this. Yes, not saying it louder, Katie. Ooh, we all do that though.
I see that in my kids, that they're really willing to talk with people, and especially my kids are also really good with people who are elderly and maybe don't hear as well. Like, they'll take the time, and I know that they've learned that from language. I have a really funny one where I was at the nail salon, and it was actually with our team because we were doing like a team training. So we went like naturally as team training, you have to get your nails done, right? So why not? So we go to get our nails done, and the woman who got me, she was a very nice lady, and like she's like, oh, sorry, no English. And I was like, okay, like, here we go. So I was like, I'm like, do you have kids? And like, she kind of knew, and then she asked the lady, and the other lady helped her. And then I was like, and I kept asking her, like, do you have questions? So she could get in that rhythm. And then we got to like, do you have pets? And she was like, pets? And I was like, yeah, woof, woof, meow, meow. And she was like, I have woof, woof. And I was like, oh, you have a dog? And right? I'm like, is it a small dog or a big dog? And she was like, it's a small dog. And I'm like, what's its name? And she just kind of looks at me, right? And I was like, oh, my name is this. And then I said, your name is, and I said her name back to her. And I was like, and your dog's name is, and she was like, I can't remember. It was like, Jimmy, Jimmy, or something like really cute. She's like, yeah, come here, Jimmy, Jimmy. Like, it was super, super cute. And so I got to learn so much about this woman and how she has 2 sons and one lives here, and all of these things when she started with no English. Right? Yeah. Like, I was able like to be patient and do that. And of course, it takes a while to get your nails done. So like, and I could choose like, oh, no English, I'll just ignore you. But at the very end, Morgan, who's getting her nails done, she said that her nail lady said, I'm very happy I have you and not her, and pointed at me. She talked too much.
I mean, in so many ways, it's easier to just not, but like, again, like this is how we all learn. And I think if we would all be more patient with one another, we could all learn languages so much faster and so much better. But yeah, no, that's a cute little story.
Yeah. So it goes both ways. You learning and being humble, and then you having empathy for others and helping them as well, which is like a great segue into like accents, because people are so worried about their accents, Jade, right?
Yes.
Like they're like, I don't want to do Spanish because I'm going to say tortilla or something instead of tortilla.
Or like I can't,
Um,
so confession, I cannot roll my R's to save my life. My children can do it, and I'm like, why? I try so hard, and it's always something I'm like self-conscious about, that like I cannot roll my R's, but like it's okay. Maybe
yeah.
someday I'll get there, or I may just not.
As you have fun, you might see yourself getting closer and closer to that. But it is something where it's like if somebody couldn't say their R's in English, right? There's some countries they just, languages you can't say are R's. I would still talk to that person. I wouldn't be like, ew, you can't say R's. I'm not going to talk to you, right? I'm not going to do that because I'm not rude. And so I feel like it's really important for you to be really kind to yourself, right? Like if someone's like, oh, I can't speak this language, to that. Well, speak it, because the point is to communicate with others. It's not to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's to communicate.
Yes. Yeah, and there are just certain sounds in certain languages that are going to be really hard because they are so close. You think about in English, there's a lot of letters that are actually pronounced very close, and it's really hard to distinguish. And that just takes time too. So that's just one of the other things that I've learned from you, is just being patient with ourselves, that like it could take months and perhaps years to be able to hear certain sounds, and like, but one day you'll probably be like, oh, I can distinguish it. But it just takes hours and hours and hours of listening.
Yeah, and then you get it. Another question that I get asked a lot is like, okay, you're learning like phrases at home. How does that help you when you're not at home? Does that make sense, Jade?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of that when you talked about the guy on the bus who said, I'm not walking.
How many times have we heard that?
From our kids,
From my
right?
4-year-old, pretty much every day since moving to the Netherlands and not having a car.
And like, you need to stop. Like, how often do we use that? Like the guy on the bus, I'm not walking, you need to stop. Like, we use that all the time. And I think it's like important and beautiful to see that the language we learn in our home is also the language that we learn outside our home. So like with our phrase book, if I were to learn the phrase, I don't know, just any phrase. Oh, here, I can't find the baby bag. No puedo encontrar la pañalera, right? But there's so many things I can't find in my life that I can switch to like, no puedo encontrar mi celular, right? I can't
Yes.
find my phone, or
Or
hopefully
you're
not my
at the
kid.
grocery store and like, I cannot find the eggs. And so
Yeah, I can't find,
go,
yes,
you can go up to
totally.
somebody and say, necesito ayudar. And then you can
Yeah.
say, I can't find this product, which goes back to, at the beginning, that's why we start with it. Because the things that we're doing on a daily basis, now I'm going shopping every day. Like there are dozens of times I've been like, well, I'm in a new grocery store, and where am I going? Where can I find this? Or because grocery stores always like to swap things up and move things, and then you have to wander the whole store trying to find whichever product you needed that used to be in this spot, but it's no longer. Well, now you have the opportunity to use that phrase.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you gotten to the box where we talk about when you don't know the words and you have to like describe what you need? I don't know if you've gotten there, but we
No.
have we have a great example in it of like what you're saying. So like let's say you know how to say these phrases, but you don't know like a keyword. It's okay. You can describe that keyword. There was this guy at a grocery store and he had found, or he needed a food item and he couldn't remember the name of it. And this is in like Colombia. I want to say my friend's in Colombia. She was there when this happened. And so the guy, he was asking the grocery clerk, like, where do I find this? The grocery clerk like didn't know what he was saying. So he was like, un momento, right? And he goes over and he comes back with an egg. And in Spanish, he says, where is the mother?
You would know.
And then the guy's like, pollo? And he's like, pollo. I don't think that guy ever forgot pollo, right? Like, and that's how it's learned, is like in those moments. So you don't ever want to fall into the trap that like you're not good enough to talk to other people, because that's not true, right? We already know that from the nail salon. And that you can figure out what you need to say or do that. And you've also said, Jade, people have been so kind to you when like that you said something and it wasn't exactly correct, but they were able to do that. And over time better and better at saying the things through those situations even.
Yes. I mean, I think I shared this over in our Facebook Live when we did it, but I was trying to wish somebody like, so it was like the Happy New Year, it was like happy wishes or like for New Year's. Um, but I used the wrong word, and so I'm pretty sure I told him happy fishes, and he kind of looked at me and was like, okay, I see what you did there. He's like, yeah. And he said it back to me. And later, I think it was like 6 months later, where I was like, that's what I said. That's why he looked at me that way. I was like, dang it.
You don't realize, yeah, you do not realize how similar words are in a language unless you're learning that language. I remember this really nice lady. She's like, I don't know how you guys do it. Kitchen, chicken. Right? And I've never like misunderstood those two. Like, right? But I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That if you said like I'm in the chicken, right? And you're like, what are they talking about? They're in the kitchen, you know. It just seems so close. And so yeah, that can totally
I feel
happen.
like that's one of the things that learning a foreign language has helped me realize about English is why it can be so difficult. And like you said, it's just the empathy from having to learn a second language. Then you start to realize like, oh, this is why English is really hard because it, you know, like the words, the way they're written aren't necessarily the way they sound. And so people a lot of times here are asking me like, oh, you speak English really good. I'm like, I hope so. But they'll be like, how do you say this word? And so like we often will have to go to Google Translate. And then I'm like, oh, you say it this way. And they're like, why? I'm like, I don't know. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just how we say it. And I'm like, oh, okay. But so yeah, I'm harking back to the empathy. It's you start to realize and perhaps be a little more introspective in your own native language too.
Yeah. So all around the table, good to speak a language with your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be fun. I wanted to share a couple ideas about how to incorporate that first box because I think the first box is like once you can dive into it, then like you kind of get hooked. But always like getting going can be really hard. And so I had a couple thoughts. So I was looking at the charts, and so I'm going to show it here. So you can see there's lots of different like fruits and there's vegetables on this one. So one of the things that you could do is to like put the charts out. And then you can ask your kids, what would you like to have? And so, you know, they can pick out something and maybe make it like shoot, what's the like chef show where they like get like 3 random ingredients and they have to make.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Chopped.
Iron Chef or Chopped? Okay,
yes.
something.
Iron Chef, Chopped, like think of that idea.
Those ones, right?
Like, they can have fun with it. And so then it's like, okay, well, let's see what recipes we can find with those ingredients. And so, you know, then it makes it more of a game and you can look at whether looking at cookbooks and having them be a part of that process and picking out something and being like, okay, well, here's, maybe we can do 2 dishes or like if they're picking only fruits, let's make a fruit salad or make a dessert. But that it gets them involved in like the food aspect and it makes it more fun because I think that's why like having them creepily whisper tengo mucha hambre is like so appropriate because it's fun. Like, oh, this isn't like I'm not being forced to do it. Like, all right, I can see this is kind of fun. I can pretend.
Yeah. And that's awesome because then once you have that food, like they choose it, once you have that food in front of you and you guys are eating it, then you're talking about it more, or you could be serving it and say like quieres or right, and that's like, whatever the food was that you guys had chosen. And then they're eating it. And when you're in those situations using it, that's going to make it like people are like, people always say, oh my gosh, it's finally sticking. Like Talkbox Mom helps the language to stick. And this is like such an incredible, fun game, Jade, to do like with the food that will help it to stick, of course. I love it.
And if you have picky eaters, this is a really good way to get them involved because kids need positive experiences and positive reinforcement to continue doing something that maybe they don't want to do. And we all know our kids don't like eating foods. Like I had my son, my 4-year-old, who is my worst eater by far. And I blame moving abroad and just all the trauma from that, which is fine. We're working on it. But last night we were having some Indian food and he was like, are there any vegetables in it? And I was like, there are no vegetables in it. He's like, only spices? I was like, only spices. He was like, good. Phew. But so like, and so I gave him some stuff to dip in it. And so he had some naan, and so he was like dipping it
Mm.
in the dal, and he tried a couple bites, and then he was like, "No, I don't want it." And it's like, okay, but that's okay. Like you tried
Yes.
it. And so, but he had fun, and he had fun dipping it in. And so these positive reinforcements, whether it's learning the language or eating food or ideally doing both, the more fun that you can make it, the more likely that they will stick with it and be willing to do it again another time.
Yeah, I love that because, like, you saw Nolan in the stories, like, he had tried a little bit of it, and I was like, because I was trying to get him, like, try 3 bites, but I didn't want to say try 3 bites. And so
Because
I
then
had
you
given him,
placed a limit on it. And so now once
yeah,
they do their 3 bites, then they're done.
they're done. And so I gave him 3 different opportunities. I tried different things for him to try it, and he had tried it. And so I was satisfied, but I didn't have to say like I'm going for 3, like you're like right. But he was
Hmm.
able to try something that was so different for him. And then I was like shocked. I look over at Darian, and he like ate all of it except for like 3 bites. Like he had eaten so much of it, and he was like that was pretty spicy. And I was like fun, right? Like and when I don't get him. When he was like 2, he would drink salsa, and then all of a
Yep.
sudden he thought food was spicy. I don't know. So
Yes.
I think it's just great, and it's not to be like it's. And then I know like at another restaurant they'll try it because I like didn't traumatize them.
Yes.
So like they'll try new thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's being willing to have kind of the ownership and be like, okay, well, I tried it and I'm done. Um, and that's okay. Like, I keep telling, this is one of the big things I've been harping on. Like, they don't have to like every food they try. There's plenty of things that I will not eat. I hate pickles. I hate things with pickles in them.
Oh, I don't like
Um,
pickles either. I used to. I
no.
don't like the pickles.
Yeah, my husband loathes apricots. Like it's perfectly normal for kids to not like something, and maybe their taste will change, and that's awesome. But maybe they won't, and maybe they will continue to grow up and not like something. So that's okay. Like the goal is to make the process something that they will do,
Mm,
and so that they will
yeah.
be continually open to it. Again, it's the same thing with the language.
I love
Um,
process. Like I'm not a result. Like results come if the process is good. Results don't come because we just want the result. So I'm like,
yep.
oh yeah, make the process good. I'm on board.
Well, and that's what, so we talked about this before, but I was so proud of you for doing like, well, what does it taste like? You know, what does it feel like? Is it crunchy? Is it soft? And he was like,
Yeah.
squeezes it, which is still interacting with it. And so take it for what it is. But he kind of squeezed it and he was like, crunchy. And you're like, well, can you take a bite and see if it still is crunchy? And he was like, fine. But it was
Yeah,
then
yeah.
taking a bite. And he was like,
And
okay,
then I
it's
was like,
crunchy.
do the inside and see if the inside is. And he like touches it too. And then he was like, it's soft. But he had a mango, I guess in English, mango lassi to drink to sweeten things out if he needed it. But yeah,
And that's,
it was
again,
so
that's
fun.
perfectly okay.
And he used to be a kid who like just like wouldn't try. Like he would rather starve.
And
So,
that's
so
a
it's
hard thing to
good.
overcome. Yes. And
Yeah,
so
it's good he's
progress
trying.
is progress. And that's
Yeah.
my 4-year-old is finally getting to the point where him dipping his naan in something was a huge deal. And so we take it for the wins that they are.
You
Liz
see
is
Liz
saying,
there?
my 2-year-old likes to point to the popsicle on the chart. I will say it back to her in German. And she says, okay, sure, mom, I have one. As if I'm asking if she wants one. Oh, kids are
Smart.
smart, man.
She's smart. She's
And
super
it's so
smart.
hard to not give it to them because you're like, all right, you're engaging. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. It's helpful, like even though you speak the language to use Talkbox Mom, because it just made me think of this with the chart. It has the word Kuchen for, that's cake in German, which Liz would know. You know that, Jade. I like you have an equivalent in Dutch too. That's probably close. Um, but like with my kids, I'd always say like I like möchtet ihr Kekse? Do you guys want cookies? And they're like, Mom, that's not cookies, that's cake. Like, you don't know. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, no, like I speak German. And then when Talkbox Mom came out in German, I put up the chart and they were like, Mom, did you know that keksa is cookies and not cake? And I was like, you people,
weird.
like they just don't trust me. So it is nice, like as somebody who speaks the language too, to have that structure. And that's what I was like dying for Talkbox Mom for German when it came out, because I just wanted that structure. Like I know how to add, I know how to subtract and divide and multiply, but I still get a math curriculum to like help me to like guide me through like teaching it, or like I find, a process, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Same thing if you already speak a language. Like it's just so helpful to have the past be able to talk and to jump in.
Well, and kids often need the reinforcement from like 2 to 3 sources for them to accept what mom and dad say.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things. Like kids don't want us to be right.
Yeah,
So
or
when
we've
somebody
tricked them
else
too
like,
much.
you're that. But like teachers will say something at school and they're like, oh, well, did you know this? And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying to you. They're like, oh, maybe you do know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that happens with my husband all the time. He's like, I already said that to you. Like, why do you feel like that's a new idea from someone else? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and so one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was like connecting your language learning with these opportunities to learn about the culture. Because obviously that's the fun part too, is like learning the language means you can delve deeper into the culture and learn to understand. And I know you guys make like some semi-frequent trips down to Mexico. I mean, being in Texas, it's a little easier
Yeah.
depending on where you are in Texas. But so like some of the things that I was thinking of is just how often like one geography, like let's learn about which countries they're near and like whichever language it is and which part of the world it's in. So, it's a great opportunity to incorporate geography, learning about like the social studies, like history of a country. One of my favorites. I'm also Hawaiian. That's the culture
love
that I identify the most
Beautiful.
with.
Bless you. Gesundheit.
She said Gesundheit. Oh, that was the Dutch.
I heard the Dutch. I'm like, oh.
Yes. Yeah, sorry about that one. But so, pineapple and macadamia nuts are two things that people really associate with Hawaii. But neither are actually from Hawaii. So pineapples are from South America, and they were brought by the Spanish by the missionaries coming through as they were making their way around. So they brought it to help fight off scurvy, and then they ended up planting them there, and that's why you have pineapples.
Nicely. Yeah.
Yes, pineapples in Hawaii. And then macadamia nuts are actually from Australia. And so 70% of the world's population of macadamia nuts can be tied back to one tree from Australia.
That's so wild.
And so I feel like it's like cool. Like, so then let's talk about, you can see like sea routes and figure out where, how would people get from Australia to Hawaii, and like what path would people take from England to get to Hawaii. And so there's all these opportunities to kind of dive in and learn fun facts, and get to learn more about culture, and just maybe some basic, because I know like my geography was not great. It's not something that we spent a lot of time on in school. And so like my world geography has gotten a lot better as we've been trying to learn about all these different cultures.
It helps so much. I even would say like, I don't know how many years ago, but like within the last 10 years, like I didn't really fully understand that different countries were like brought together even to make Mexico. I mean, I understood that there was different indigenous groups, but I didn't understand that they had been different countries. And even when we were in the Yucatan a little bit ago, we were like learning about their history and like why they joined Mexico and like how that worked instead of just being their own country, and like the political factors and wars involved in that. It's just like so interesting. And when we were on the bus there, my kids, they were like watching from going from like Playa del Carmen to Merida, and like you have to go through 2 different states, and then we went down to like a 3rd state. But because they were on the bus watching that, they have like really, really good geography of that area because they were like looking at it and they made that impression. But they can also do that, like for example, like when we use our Korean, they're like, oh, that's the place that like they make that yummy barbecue chicken, or like the breaded chicken. They do really great, right? Or that's the place, right? And they tie it to the food, or they tie it to the map where we looked at it, or they tie it to the flag. And so I love how you're saying like, yeah, as you speak the language, yeah, bring in those other things, and it like helps to make that connection. And your kids are really open to it because they're putting in the effort to talk, right?
Yeah, and again, these are all opportunities to use your Talkbox phrases and
did I say Gesundheit?
I don't even know. I think Gesundheit, but then I just do. Now I can't say the G just by itself. I do everything with the.
Yeah. Gesundheit. Yeah, that's cute. Sorry, you're saying something like intelligent. Sorry. Well, I said Gesundheit. Are you
Yeah.
off?
Oh,
I'm
just
sorry.
incorporating the talk box phrases and to be using the phrases like, but where are they? I mean, there's so many phrases that you could use. Is it above, below? That you can incorporate in so many ways if you're willing to kind of take the time to be creative, and make things into a game.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's super fun, Jade.
Well, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, just if we have any questions, or if not, if anybody has a question, yeah, Jade,
Yes,
ask it
yeah,
in the,
whether it's about food or about the language learning. I know that one of the questions that people always get is that I get all the time, at least about food, is like, but my kids are so picky they only eat chicken nuggets. And my answer to that is that like a version of chicken nuggets exists in so many different forms and so many different cultures. And so
yeah, do you know,
just take the
seriously?
opportunity to go Google it. I'm sure you'll find it. There's chicken katsu, there's chicken schnitzel. Um, they take those and
Yeah.
then go ahead and um, use different sauces. Like you can have like a sauce buffet with sauces from different cultures and dip those dino chicken nuggets in from
Yeah, in
Costco.
them.
Uh, yeah, and have them taste test and try it. And that's a
Did
great
you see the
opportunity.
nanny? Do you know that nanny show from the BBC? I think
No.
that's what it's from. Maybe it's not the BBC. Okay, I saw it on YouTube. I went down a rabbit hole on Facebook. Anyways, the lady, she was like, the kids, they kept like fighting their mom to eat just chicken nuggets. The nanny lady threw the dino chicken nugget at the mom. I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. Anyways, that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, we don't need to be throwing the chicken nuggets. We could do the buffet, like the dipping buffet from all over the world. It sounds way more fun.
Yes, and the key to I think anything is giving the kids the choice and the option. I thought it was really interesting when you said like, do you want to use this phrase or this phrase? So it's giving them two options. Two or three is usually the maximum you want to give kids, especially little ones, because the more options you
Yeah.
give, the more they feel overloaded. But like if you give them either or options, there's only two options, and they have to choose one of those. It's when you give them that, then they know like, okay, there's structure to this. I still get to have a choice. It's the same with food. You don't want to say, do you want vegetables or not? Because then they're always going to choose not. But it could be, do you want carrots or do you want corn? And they might be like, well, I like carrots more. And so it's like, cool. Do you want them cooked or do you want them raw? And these kind of autonomy means that they have more ownership of it, so they're far more likely to use it because they have been involved in it, and they're more
Oh,
likely
totally.
to then be willing to engage with it.
Yeah, we have like if I'm cooking something, my kids will like they're helping out, and then they'll be like, "Can you please just not cook the bell peppers for us?" And I'm like, "Fine." So I put them aside. I cook my bell peppers, and they still eat bell peppers, you know. So
Yeah,
I think it is nice that they can decide on what it is. So yeah, so really fun.
yeah. Um, so I'm not seeing any questions, and I think we answered kind of some of the most frequently asked ones that we see, especially in the Talkbox group. Um, But so thank you. I know that there are some coupon codes for people if they want to try the Talkbox. Obviously, this is a program that I love, I'm passionate about, that we obviously are using for way too many languages all at once. But we just wanted them on hand. We took advantage of a sale and we wanted them on hand for when we're ready to
Yeah,
dive in
I
and
love
start
it.
adding more. But so, Adelaide, do you have those codes?
Yeah, so if you haven't joined Talkbox.mom yet and you'd like to because Jade loves it so much. So Kate's gonna pop the codes in. I think she can pop them in faster than I can. But you can get a discount on your first box and book with the code. And if Kate doesn't put that in, let me see if I can grab it here. And we can also put it in the description, Jade. You can pop that
Yeah.
in when we repost that. Let me see if I have it. And if maybe we lost Kate.
Oh no,
So,
Kate,
Kate.
no.
Yeah. Okay, here I have it. So,
Okay.
JONESIN for Taste 20 is to get $20 off your first box and phrase book. So you can put that into to try out your first box and phrase book, and they go together so well. And then if you just want to start with your phrase book, you can use JONESIN for Taste 5, and you get $5 off your phrase book. To choose your language, you go to talkbox.mom/start, you pick your language, and then you can start with your first box and then add the book in, and then put in that code, and then you will be good to go. And I see Kate copying things.
Yes,
now.
we've got the links up and going. And like all of these get loaded into your native speaker or into the app. So you can hear the native speaker. I love that I can use it on the go, like when we're at the park and I'm like, oh, let's practice our park phrases. Like it's just really easy to access. And so they'll just get added in as you buy them. I know that I bought a book first before I got a box, and we had to pause the boxes because then we were moving abroad.
Yeah, you were one of the first people to buy a book.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, I remember that, and I'll always remember that. So thank you.
And I bought like 10 because I was so excited. I bought for all my friends. I bought one for a friend who was moving to Puerto Rico. I bought one for a friend who was actually a German teacher. She taught high school German, and she was flipping through the book, and she's like, oh, there's a lot of good phrases in here that I never learned. And I was like, haha, for the win.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. That's how it is. Well, awesome. So yeah, so if you want to get your first box and book, get those together and use JONESIN for Taste 20. And then you can also join our accountability group that Jade was talking about, where we help you through it. So I hope you really love it, because I can't wait to hear you talking, like really using a language with your family, because it'll be really fun. So take advantage of Jade's code.
Yes. And if you need to have like a clickable link, there's a clickable link in my bio. If you click on that, you'll see the talk box. And it has that JONESIN for Taste 20 code. So that makes it really easy to get over there.
Perfect.
So, yeah. Well,
okay,
thank you,
awesome.
Adelaide.
Well, thank you,
it was
Jade.
so fun to talk.
Yeah, you have
Bye.
a good night. Bye.
Thanks, you too.